In the year 1540, the most powerful king in England sat on his golden throne, whimpering like a child. His big toe had swollen to the size of a plum, throbbing red and angry, and no army could save him. Today, gout is treatable with a tiny pill that costs less than a cup of coffee. But back then, the royal doctors had other ideas, brilliant ideas, like pouring boiling animal fat on the king's foot. But to understand how it got this bad, we need to rewind to the young Henry, the Golden Prince of England. Young Henry was a beast, 6'2", athletic, obsessed with jousting, hunting, and wrestling anyone who dared. But there was one battle Henry never wanted to miss, the battle at the dinner table. And oh, what a table it was! The Tudor royal kitchen served around 13 courses per feast. Henry personally demolished most of them himself. His royal kitchen employed over 200 staff. Each year, they roasted over 1,000 oxen and 8,000 sheep. Vegetables. Henry considered them peasant food. A real king ate meat, bread, and wine, mostly wine. Meanwhile, the average Tudor commoner survived on bread, porridge, and the occasional mystery stew. Jealous yet? Historians estimate Henry consumed nearly 5,000 calories a day. That is roughly 2.5 times what a modern adult needs. All that red meat, all that sugar, all that wine. Inside Henry's body, uric acid was quietly building up like a ticking time bomb. Henry had no idea. He was too busy being the most famous king in Europe, dancing, feasting, and collecting wives. But deep inside his royal bloodstream, millions of tiny uric acid crystals were sharpening their knives. And they were hungry. It started one morning in the late 1520s. Henry woke up and felt something strange in his left foot. His big toe was swollen, hot, and throbbing. It felt like someone had shoved a burning coal inside his joint. The court servant who witnessed it later described the king's screaming as louder than a stuck pig at slaughter. The royal physician was summoned immediately. He arrived with great confidence and absolutely zero correct knowledge about gout. You see, Tudor medicine was built on a theory from ancient Greece. It was called humorism, and it was spectacularly wrong. Humorism claimed the body contained 4 liquids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Illness meant they were unbalanced, so when the doctor examined Henry's swollen toe, his diagnosis was instant. Too much hot blood had pooled in the king's foot. The solution obvious. They needed to drain the excess hot blood out, and for that, they called in the barber surgeon. Now, barber surgeons were not real doctors. They were barbers who also pulled teeth, amputated limbs, and drained blood on the side. The barber surgeon approached the king's foot with a dirty lancet. He sliced open a vein and let the blood pour into a bowl. Did it help his gout? Absolutely not. It just made him weaker, dizzier, and significantly angrier than before. Undeterred, the royal physician retreated to his apothecary and began mixing his next masterpiece, a herbal poultice of nightshade and opium. The poultice contained nightshade, which is literally poisonous, and opium, which just made Henry too drowsy to scream. The servant outside heard silence for the first time in days. He assumed the treatment worked. It had not. Henry was just unconscious. When Henry finally woke up, his toe was just as swollen. And now he wanted answers. Dangerous answers. From anyone with a pulse. With bloodletting a spectacular failure, the royal physician dove deeper into his bag of tricks. And by tricks, we mean horrors. His next brilliant idea involved animal fat. Specifically, the rendered fat from a freshly slaughtered ox, heated until it bubbled and smoked. The doctor carefully poured the scalding hot fat directly onto Henry's swollen toe. The king's reaction was exactly what you would expect. 3 floors down, the court servants felt the vibration. One of them quietly began updating his last will and testament. The doctor insisted the fat treatment was working. The redness, he explained, was simply the bad humors leaving the body through heat. When the fat failed, The doctor reached for his favorite secret weapon, mercury, the wonder drug of the Tudor age. Tudor doctors prescribed mercury for almost everything: skin rashes, infections, syphilis, gout. It was their version of a Swiss Army knife. The mercury was mixed into an ointment and rubbed onto Henry's foot. It did not cure the gout. It did poison the king slowly. Mercury poisoning causes tremors, memory loss, mood swings, and kidney damage. But hey, at least his toe looked shiny now. Next on the menu was the enema. The Tudor doctors believed that flushing out the bowels would somehow fix a swollen toe. We will spare you the details, but the historical record confirms that Henry received regular enemas and hated every single one. But the most disgusting remedy was yet to come. Brace yourselves. The royal physician prescribed a poultice made of pigeon droppings. Yes, actual pigeon poop, mixed with herbs and slathered onto the king's royal toe. This was considered cutting-edge medicine in the 1530s. The pigeon poultice did absolutely nothing for the gout, but it did give the king a nasty skin infection on top of everything else. Henry was desperate. His doctors had failed him with blood, fat, mercury, enemas, and bird feces. But there was still one cure left: gold. In the 1530s, a mysterious substance arrived at the Tudor court. It was called aurum potabili, drinkable gold. The royal physician was ecstatic. Gold was the noblest metal. Surely the noblest metal could cure the noblest king. Henry drank the liquid gold without hesitation. It tasted metallic and burned his throat. But if it was expensive, it had to work. Right? Spoiler alert, it did not work. Modern scientists believe aurum potabile was mostly alcohol with tiny gold flakes, a very expensive cocktail. But Henry's gout was about to become the least of his problems, because in January 1536, something far worse happened on this field. Henry, now 44 years old and significantly overweight, insisted on jousting. His horse was carrying over 300 pounds of king in armor. The horse collapsed. Henry crashed to the ground in full armor. The horse then fell directly on top of him. He was unconscious for 2 hours. When he finally woke up, his left leg had a deep wound that cut through muscle and bone. It would never fully heal again. Now Henry had 2 problems: chronic gout in his toe and a festering open wound on his leg. His doctors had to treat both simultaneously. The leg wound became chronically infected. It oozed pus constantly. The smell was so terrible that courtiers reportedly gagged from across the room. Court records describe servants holding perfumed cloths over their faces whenever they entered the king's presence. The throne room smelled like death. The doctors tried everything to close the wound. They packed it with herbs, sealed it with hot irons, and even inserted gold wires. Nothing worked. The wound had to be kept open and drained daily. Every morning, a servant would squeeze out the infected pus by hand. Every single morning. The Golden Prince of England was now a rotting, swollen, foul-smelling mountain of pain trapped on his own throne. And as his body rotted, something else began to change. His mind. The charming young king was becoming a monster, and everyone noticed. By the late 1530s, the transformation was complete. The Golden Prince was gone. In his place sat a furious, paranoid, pain-ravaged tyrant. His servants lived in constant terror. On good days, Henry merely shouted. On bad days, he threw things. On gout days, people disappeared. Historians describe Henry's gout attacks as coming in waves. Each flare-up lasted days, sometimes weeks, leaving him bedridden and volcanic. Some historians now believe the chronic pain fundamentally rewired Henry's brain. Constant agony can change personality, destroy empathy, and fuel paranoia. There is also a debated theory that the jousting accident caused a traumatic brain injury, making his violent mood swings even worse. During one infamous gout attack, Henry ordered an entire banquet table flipped because a servant accidentally brushed against his swollen foot. His doctors were terrified. If they could not ease his pain, they might lose their positions, or worse, their heads. And then there were the wives. Henry famously married 6 women. 2 were beheaded. Some historians wonder if gout played a role. Think about it. A man in constant, excruciating pain, possibly brain damaged, surrounded by yes-men, with absolute power. What could go wrong? By the 1540s, Henry could barely walk. He needed a special chair with poles carried by 4 strong men just to move between rooms. Records suggest his waist measured 54 inches around. Special cranes were reportedly built to hoist him in and out of bed. His doctors kept prescribing the same useless remedies. More mercury, more poultices, more enemas. The definition of insanity on repeat. Meanwhile, Henry kept eating. Even as his body failed, he refused to change his diet, 5,000 calories a day until the very end. On January 28, 1547, King Henry VIII died at the age of 55. His body was so bloated it barely fit the coffin. Legend says his coffin burst open during transport to Windsor. The floor was covered in royal remains. Even in death, Henry refused to be contained. So after all that suffering, all those horrifying treatments, what did modern science eventually discover about gout? The answer is almost insulting. Gout is caused by uric acid. When you eat too much red meat, sugar, and alcohol, uric acid builds up and forms sharp crystals in your joints. That is literally what was happening inside Henry's toe. Tiny, razor-sharp crystals stabbing his joint from the inside. And his doctors had no clue. Every single treatment they tried either did nothing or made things actively worse. Let us review the damage, shall we? Bloodletting weakened him. Animal fat burned him. Mercury poisoned his kidneys. Enemas humiliated him. Pigeon poop gave him infections. And drinkable gold. It was just alcohol with glitter, a 500-year-old scam that would make modern supplement companies proud. Today, gout is treated with a drug called colchicine. It reduces inflammation in hours. A single pill costs roughly 50 cents. 50 cents. Henry spent a fortune on gold, mercury, and pigeon feces. And the answer was a pill cheaper than a loaf of Tudor bread. Modern doctors also recommend a simple dietary change. Less red meat, less alcohol, more water, more vegetables. Exactly what Henry refused to do. Ironically, the common people Henry despised actually had a healthier diet. Less meat, more grain, more vegetables. Poverty saved their toes. Henry VIII had everything. Wealth, power, an army, a navy, 6 wives, and more food than any human could need. But he could not defeat a crystal smaller than a grain of sand. His own appetite was the enemy no army could fight. The most powerful king in the world, brought to his knees by his own big toe. If that is not poetic justice, nothing is. So the next time you complain about taking a tiny pill, remember Henry. He would have traded his entire kingdom for one. This has been Hidden History. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe and hit the bell. Next time, we explore what the Victorians used as toothpaste. You are not ready.